I see that I'm the only one that got the directive. Welcome to Facebook Live, Red Zone Extra. Let me introduce the panel. To my far right, Herbie Teope. To my right here, Sam McDowell. To my left is Vahe Gregorian, and beside him is Sam Mellinger, none of whom are in the spirit of Halloween today.
Who are you?
Thanks, guys. I'm creepy baseball head guy. So we're here to talk Chiefs on Halloween. Happy Halloween. And hey, be safe out there. The roads were tough. Who was the last one to get here today?
Vahe.
I'm going to own it.
Vahe.
Special guest.
Vahe was the last one.
Earlier than he got there for our last two, though.
That's true. That's exactly right. Improving, always getting better.
Can we do first?
Yeah, let's see. And who was the first today?
Both Sams.
It was an upset.
Sam and Sam.
An absolute upset. I lived the closest. This is an upset.
Yeah, this was called a home game for you, and you got nothing.
All right. Hey, so we're at Big O Tires in the Legends today, 1923 West 110th Street. We're here to talk Chiefs, and we hope you will join us talking Chiefs. It's getting a little hot in
I'm
here.
glad you joined us. Yeah.
Getting a little hot in Mr. Baseball Head. A little commemorative World Series, too. Not just Halloween, but
That's right.
get World Series last night. Congratulations to the Washington Nationals.
And Mizzou's own Max Scherzer.
How about that?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Mother Jan from Lee Summit.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
Hey, so we want your questions and comments. Send them to us. We've tweeted out the Facebook Live address, the link, and let's get right to it, guys. With the question on most people's minds, I think when it comes to the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, is he going to play this week against the Minnesota Vikings at Arrowhead Stadium at noon on Sunday? Herbie, what you feeling about that?
Well, Andy Reid told us yesterday he hasn't officially named a starter yet. Asked Mike Zimmer on the teleconference, who is he preparing for, Matt Moore or Mahomes, and he basically said you have to prepare like both of them are playing. Mahomes did put in a limited practice on Wednesday, which is basically what he did last week. I don't know if he's going to play this week. I think it would be kind of crazy if you put him out there against that Vikings stout defense. I mean, they've got 5 Pro Bowlers over there, and do you want to expose Mahomes to that pass rush? I don't know if that's what you want to do.
Let's go down a line here. Sam, what do you think? Should he, could he, if he could, should he? What do you think?
Should he and could he are probably different answers for me. Should he? I would probably say no based on the doctors I talked to last week, because he is going to be, whenever he returns, likely susceptible to dislocating this thing again, at which case you probably would halt the season and go to the surgical option. And none of us are doctors, but it is from talking to a few of these guys last week that are familiar with this injury, that is the biggest risk, and the earlier you come back, the more susceptible you are to that. But could he? I mean, Andy Reid said yesterday that he's going to be doing more this week than he did last week. And last week he said he was close on Friday. That's what he said. So I wouldn't rule him out for playing on Sunday.
Surgical option. Don't like the sound of that.
Nuclear option is sort of what it sounds like. And I look, the crux of the question is the could he, should he, I think. And I absolutely lean on the just because he can doesn't mean he should. And what's very interesting to think about is how much the Chiefs think about that. And I think we were talking about this a little bit among ourselves, and I guess I wrote something about it, about just when it came to the ankle, whether there's a question there for them to be asked. And this is, as Sam got into just now, but also in his story last week, this is clinically more prone to not just aggravation, but ruination. So to me, why would you possibly rush it? They're still in the catbird seat for the playoffs, and maybe that shouldn't affect the matrix of what you're thinking of anyway. But to me, just hold off. Make sure everything's right. Make sure, and then some, everything's right.
Yeah. And Sam, it seems like the Andy Reid pattern has been once you come back in a limited role in practice one week, you're kind of good to go the following week. And I know that it was limited yesterday, right?
Correct.
So Mahomes was limited, but Andy also seems to be the kind of coach that would, as soon as the guy's ready to go, he gets back in the lineup.
I don't think he did much last week. You know what I mean? Like I kind of view this week as that first limited week. I think last week that was just part of basic rehab. And I'm sure he could play, like, if he just absolutely had to. But there's an old Chris Rock line that's like popping into my head about you can steer a car with your feet if you want to. Doesn't make it a good idea. Like that's, I'm kind of thinking about that right now. I mean, even just missing the 2 games is pretty quick. Is really quick. So to just make it 1 just seems like borderline reckless. And I look like. None of us have examined the knee. Even if we were allowed to examine the knee, we wouldn't know what the hell we were doing.
I like where you're going here, though.
None of us have examined.
Please let me examine it, and then we'll know.
But it is Halloween, so we can technically say we're doctors for today.
That's right. We can be doctors
for today.
But I don't get the rush with the way that the division is. I don't understand. There's a logical path, even if they lose on Sunday, which I expect them to do, for them to still get the number 2 seed in the AFC, depending on how some tiebreakers go. I just, with the Raiders, where they are, like, they're 2 wins above everybody in the division. I don't get the rush to bring this guy back.
Do you mind if I just jump into? Sam wrote this a couple weeks ago, and this is just as true now, if not more so than ever. This is all about getting ready for the Patriots.
Yeah.
Not December 8th either. And so that, when you put it that way, it reframes the argument, I think.
Yeah.
And Blair, just so if the viewers have any questions, what does limited mean? It means basically a player participates in stretching and conditioning, individual position drills, but not with team drills. And that's the key thing here, because if he's limited without participating in team drills, now you really start wondering, will he be able to play?
Right.
We should also point out that Andy Reid has said Mahomes wanted to play last week. So this isn't Patrick Mahomes' decision. You've got to get a yes from all 3 parties, basically, when it comes to his representation, the player himself, and the team. So we're preaching for the Chiefs to play it cautious. They did last week because Patrick Mahomes wanted to play, and the team is who held him out.
So what do we think about how the Chiefs performed in the first game they have played since Mahomes became a starter without Mahomes? Matt Moore stepped in. He had some decent numbers, 24-36 for 267 yards. I think we said after the game in the Facebook Live at Arrowhead that it was almost Alex Smithian in performance. The numbers, the game management. Sam, was it an acceptable performance, and can the Chiefs, survive another week or 2, or at least a week, let's say, with Matt Moore as their guy?
I mean, acceptable for Matt Moore, I think for sure. I don't know.
Does it give the Chiefs a chance to? Can they win?
Yeah, the Packers are one of the best teams in football, and they played them within a touchdown. And that McCoy fumble was just a killer.
Yeah.
And then followed up by the Aaron Rodgers magic trick touchdown in the back of the end zone. Wasn't good enough to win, and the Chiefs, judging the Chiefs on whether they can get into the playoffs, those days are 7 years old now. This is about advancing. It wasn't good enough to beat a good team, which means it wasn't good enough. But it's hard to watch that game and know the context of Frank Clark, Chris Jones. We're focused on the quarterback, and for good reason. But Frank Clark, Chris Jones, Eric Fisher, Kendall Fuller,
Wiley was out.
And maybe
Wiley.
Or Laurent Duvernay-Tardif now.
Yeah, for half the game, and Bashad Breeland missed some of that game. Watching that game with all that context against that team, it's hard to be discouraged, but still wasn't good enough to win.
To your point, I'll pick up with that first. I think by the end, eight starters down, right, total, and that's pretty tough to put in context. I liked how he played. I think if there aren't 2 just outright drops, and maybe if Tyreek Hill pulls that ball out that we've seen him kind of pull out before, it wasn't a
On
good
the deep ball?
On the deep ball. It wasn't a great pass, but we've seen him make that kind of catch before, then we're looking at him a little differently. And I keep thinking, first start in almost 2 years, that's kind of at least a rust scraper. I'd expect him to play a little better this week, at least as far as his own aspects of it are concerned. It depends a little bit on how the Vikings play and how those around him play.
And Moore actually said yesterday that was the throw he wished he had back, that he thought he underthrew Tyreek a little bit.
He did underthrow him.
He did.
Yeah.
What about these injuries? I mean, that's I mentioned this Saturday or Sunday that this is the most injured I could ever remember the Chiefs being in the Andy Reid era. I mean, it's a little difficult to expect this next man up, philosophy for the Chiefs to be able to just pick up and go with, as Vahe said, 8 starters at one point being out of the game. And now we get news that Dustin Colquitt, was hurt. They signed Jack Fox this week, but Colquitt did practice yesterday, right? So Herbie, just kind of break down the injuries right now, where everybody is, and who might have the best chance of coming back to the lineup on Sunday?
There are a lot of injuries, as the esteemed panel here has mentioned, but I think the folks who have a good chance to come back, Andrew Wiley, obviously, so he should be back at left guard because he put in a full practice Wednesday. Chris Jones returned to practice for the first time since suffering the groin injury against the Colts. He was limited, but he's trending up. I'm a little concerned about Frank Clark, and I specifically asked Andy Reid yesterday, is this a week-by-week deal or a day-by-day deal? And he says day-by-day, but of course Chiefs fans, when they hear day-by-day, the first thing they think of is, well, Eric Berry was day-by-day, and it took him like
Literally
13 months to come back. So he's a major concern there. But of all those injuries there, Duvernay Tardif and the rest of the folks that we mentioned here, they didn't practice yesterday. Eric Fisher was a surprise to me because he did return last week, but then he didn't practice Friday and didn't practice Wednesday. So now we're wondering, did he aggravate anything there? And now that sets him back. So way too many injuries. The next man up mentality is the motto around the National Football League. But I think you can survive if it's 1 or 2 or 3 guys at a minimum. But 8, 9 starters at a shot, that's a lot to overcome.
And especially if 3 of them are on the offensive line, too. That's a killer with Matt Moore at quarterback and LaShawn McCoy fumbling. The injuries are one thing, and performance I thought performance was okay, offensively against the Packers. But we've mentioned it here. They're playing the Minnesota Vikings this week. I think the Vikings right now might be better than the Packers. Top 10 in all these measurable categories, defensive yards allowed, rushing, passing, and then top 10 in passing and rushing. This is a good Minnesota team coming in that they can hurt the Chiefs where they're most vulnerable to.
And that's a good point because I think when you look at the schedule right now, the Minnesota Vikings to me are the most complete team the Chiefs will have faced entering Week 9. As Blair mentioned here, they are top 10 in a lot of areas, but they're also top 5 in 2 key areas, total defense and total offense. And so what I think what you're going to see a lot of, and the biggest issue for the Chiefs coming into this game, is how in the world do you stop Dalvin Cook, that stud running back for the Vikings? He leads the league in total yards from scrimmage. He leads the league yards rushing. And Aaron Jones, you saw what he did last week, and I kind of mentioned this on the Facebook Live after Sunday's game. It seems like the Chiefs are now all of a sudden back to where we started. They can't stop the run, and they can't stop an opposing running back. So Cook is in line, I think, for a big game.
This is kind of a linebacker issue, isn't it, Sam?
Yeah. Seen that story, right?
Yep. Written that story.
Yes, a few times. Talked about that story on the show.
Yeah.
It's maybe I'm just being a parrot here, but it's just a really rotten matchup. A lot of the ways that the Chiefs can be hurt are the ways that the Vikings can hurt. The one thing they don't have is a super dynamic quarterback. I mean, Kirk Cousins is fine.
Been good for the last 4 games.
He has. He's got a big arm. He can make, but still more of a distributor. But they also, their backup running back's really good. The offensive line creates holes. They've got receiver. I think Steph Diggs is one of the best. I think he's kind of underrated. I think people think he's a good player, but he's incredible. I think the defense is physical. I mean, they've got a lot to hurt the Chiefs with.
And Adam Thielen may be back this week. The wide receivers had a hamstring injury. So, okay, so if we were breaking down Chiefs-Vikings and we were putting, checks and boxes about advantages for various aspects, when we got to the intangibles, we would always check, home team, Chiefs, right? Home team. Sam is working on a story this week about, I don't know if we can check that box now. Yeah. What is going on with the Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium? Why has it suddenly become, not the advantage it has always seemed to have been?
Yeah, it's kind of a trend really across the NFL. I mean, this year the road teams have a winning record against home teams. That's despite last week the home teams went 11-4 against the road teams last week. But Arrowhead, I mean, the Chiefs have lost 5 of 8 if you include the playoff game against the Patriots. But this has been going on since Andy Reid was here in 2013, and usually, obviously, your home record is going to be better the better team you are. So you wonder if they're more trending towards this team that is what they are at home, or if they're as good as they are because how good they've been on the road. Because it's only a 4-win difference between home and road since he got here, which is I think 7% better chance of winning at home than he has of winning on the road. And you go down the line of Chiefs coaches over the years. Marty Schottenheimer was 60-20 at home, and 500 on the road. So that's a 25% better chance of winning home games. But really over the years, and I actually talked to some of the odds makers that set the lines about how different is it now based on how you set it at home versus how you used to give the home field advantage, and it is a lot different. And they attribute most to officiating. The home team used to have the benefit of the whistle, and now with replay, more cameras, just more eyes on all the games, you don't get the benefit of the whistle as much at home. You want to say that crowd noise is a factor, and perhaps it is on a down here or there, but overall I think that's a bit of a myth. And so I think that's really sort of just leveled the playing field, whether or not you're playing at home or on the road.
This year also, real quick, it's worth noting that just this year, because as Sam just mentioned, this is not a this year thing overall. Right. But just this year, they played much better teams at home than they have on the road.
Far, they have.
Sure.
Right? They haven't gone through most of they haven't played any of the AFC West teams at home yet, have they? Not Chargers, Broncos, or Raiders, right?
No,
but
right.
So that stat factors into the overall record when you look at the fact they're 4-0 on the road and 1-3 at home. But there's webs, like Football Outsiders, and I know you look at that as well with their DVOA. That they factor in opponent and quality, and the Chiefs I think are 4th worst defense when all that stuff is factored in at home, and they have the 3rd best defense on the road when all that stuff is factored in. So they're playing better on the road as well. It's not just the opponent, and there's something else going on there. And part of it is because they prepare well for the road teams. And, travel's become easier these days in the NFL. These are more business-like trips than they are, sort of difficult places to get to. Everyone's got chartered flights. So I think that factors into it a little bit as well. But I think they're probably asking themselves that question right now as well. What is the difference between why you can perform like this on the road versus why are you not matching that at home?
I don't know if this is a factor at all, but it was pretty notable that it was not overwhelmingly Chiefs fans at the game the other night even, too. I mean, Packers gained access. And the takeaway from the end of that game was the chance of go, Pack, go. At Arrowhead.
Beginning of the game too.
Beginning of the game too. Yeah, bookended.
Those people were
through
live.
the game.
Well, so just the numbers. The Chiefs are 1-3, right? 1-3 at home, 4-0 on the road this year, and as you said, lost 5 of their last 8 home games going back to last year. It started with that loss to the Chargers on that primetime game, and then if you include the playoffs, the Patriots lost, and then the other ones this year. And you said one of you guys said factor in the opponents. Well, I do factor in the opponents, and something that I think is a little concerning is the Chiefs were 2-4 against playoff teams last season, right? One of those losses was at home against the Chargers at the end, but they were 2-4 against playoff teams in the regular season. Yeah. This year, if the season were to end here at the midpoint after 8 games, the 6 playoff teams would be the Patriots, the Colts as the 2 seed, the Ravens as the 3, Chiefs would be the 4, Bills, and then Texans as the 2 wildcard teams. And the Chiefs are 1-2 against those teams with the Patriots still left on the schedule.
Packers are a playoff team.
Packers are a playoff team, that's right. And so are the Vikings. So 1-4 against
1-3.
Going
into this week.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. 1-3 after the Packers looming.
Know your prediction.
That's right. There's a sneak prediction in there. But look, Matt Moore's been the quarterback for one of them, but that's not a that's not a heartwarming stat, is it? To have that kind of record against playoff or potential playoff teams, and they take care of AFC West, right? And those teams have been under 500, and they've taken care of the Cleveland Browns, but they're not taking care of playoff teams.
Well, they did beat Denver on that Thursday night game, but one of the trends that people pointed out in the Patrick Mahomes era is his record at night. Well, that's partly because the games at night are against better teams, is it not? More than the lights.
It is primetime games.
But also the fact that they lose those games. I mean, I just think it really dispels the noise or the decibel level of the crowd being a huge factor in a game, because the primetime games draw out the loudest crowds at Arrowhead Stadium. Those are the games they're losing.
All right. No theories. No theories on this. Are the Chiefs just not a? The reason I think about it is playoff teams are who you have to beat. The playoffs.
Sure.
And can the Chiefs beat 2 or 3 of those teams in 2 or 3 weeks? With and maybe we have to separate the years. Last year was first year of Mahomes as a starter. This year they're dealing with all kinds of injuries, and if everybody's back healthy by the end of the year, maybe this is a really dangerous team at the end of the year.
It's definitely a dangerous team if they're healthy. But one thing, the Patriots this year are probably 0-0 against playoff teams. You know what I mean?
Actually, they beat the Bills.
They beat the Bills. Yeah,
They've got
they
have one of the 10 easiest schedules remaining, too.
Yeah,
Right.
I actually somebody showed me a number yesterday. The Bills, the Bills' opponents' records, it was something like 12-36 or something like that this year, or 14. It was 14, and 6 of those wins were by the Bills. So I'm curious what everybody's record is against a playoff team. Last year, they were closer to full strength, maybe at full strength. They were pretty healthy last year, weren't they? But anyway, they lost. That Rams game was wild. Could have gone either way. I won't go through the whole thing, but Seattle was the one game where it was better team won. Mm-hmm. When you know what I mean, that Chargers game at the end. Yeah, that was a coin flip.
Yeah,
although it's doesn't become a coin flip when Gronk is split wide against Shaw.
Josh Shaw.
That becomes less of a coin flip. But, and this year, Matt Moore, I'm curious if the Chiefs and the Packers played at full strength. I'm not saying the Chiefs would definitely win, but I'd be curious to see that game. And spoiler alert, right? I expect them to lose Sunday, and that would be with Matt Moore. There's some things that you got to take into account. Now, but they should be closer to full strength unless they get more new injuries December 8th in Foxborough.
Should be.
You brought this up, and I just wanted to, I guess, double down or amplify the point. I mean, each season is its own dynamic, right? And so we do attach that stuff from last year, but even just looking at the injuries this year, and not just the injuries, but the expectation of all these people coming back, the notion, we've been sort of pointing toward midseason is around the time you thought the defense might kind of start to get it. Maybe it hasn't quite, but it also hasn't been at a full complement. So I feel like we're still, coming to see what this team really has and is. And obviously it will be defined by the playoffs, but I think we don't quite fully know what its real capacity is.
I think you're right. I agree. Hey, let's tackle one more topic before we get to where the rubber meets the road, because we have multiple rubber meets the road questions to get to this year, on this day. The defense played great against Denver, right? And Denver is, an inferior team. Had moments against the Packers. 5 sacks, I believe, given the team 14 sacks in the last 2 games. So we were pretty critical of this defense through, the first 4, 5, 6 games. They've had moments in each of the last 2. I've sensed something a little different about this defense. A little more attacking, a little risk-taking. Sacks alone suggest that. Is this defense starting to maybe get an identity, and is this the right identity for this defense, Herbie?
I'm going to go with what Sam said. If we're talking about an identity, then they have an identity problem at the linebacker position because they're just giving up entirely too much. Too many big plays out there. And I think when Aaron Jones exploits the linebacker core's inability to cover a running back out of the backfield, that's going to be huge.
On the final play that clinched the game for him.
Correct. And if you remember after the Denver game, because when they did a phenomenal job against Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, I said, this is, okay, here's your one shot here. Once it's a fluke, twice or more is a habit. And we're back to being a habit of an inability to stop the run. And to win in the National Football League, you have to be able to stop the run and turn a team into a one-dimensional attack. And I don't think that's going to happen against Minnesota. I just don't. I think Minnesota, I'm spoiler alert, like Sam says, I also think the Chiefs are going to lose this game.
Okay, so let's get to it. Where the rubber meets the road, and let's get our prediction out of the way first. Is everybody picking, if Matt Moore's the quarterback, everybody going Minnesota this week?
I think the Chiefs are going to win. On
Okay,
Sunday.
Sam.
I'm going to go contrarian with Sam also. I feel like just because I really think the Vikings are going to win, I'm going to say the Chiefs.
Okay, very good. I like that. We'll split decision here.
Hello, you're the
Interesting.
tiebreaker.
I say the Vikings.
But your logic in picking the Chiefs
Is that I'm wrong? I'm
usually
usually
wrong?
Vikings are gonna win. I like it.
If I predict poorly,
All right.
and since my instinct says Vikings, let's go Chiefs.
If everything you do is wrong.
That's exactly right.
All right.
Really playing both sides there, huh?
All right, so where the rubber meets the road, this is the time where we usually identify the player we think will have a big game or needs to have a big game or in this week's game. And we'll continue to do that. But we have some other questions on where the rubber meets the road. This is the halfway point of the season for the Chiefs, right? They're 5-3, 8 games to go. So I want you all to also give us who the Chiefs' first half non-Mahomes player of the year is. Could go offense, defense. So first half player of the year. What the Chiefs' record's going to be in the second half of the season. It's 8 games. Give us a record, and your favorite Halloween candy. So I will remind you when we go through this.
Yeah, can you write it down? I've
I
lost
have written
track
it down
here.
because I would never have remembered all of this. But let's start, Herbie, because I love starting with you on stuff like this. You've given this no thought at all. Player, where the rubber meets the road, player who has to come up big for the Chiefs on Sunday.
I'm going to go with rookie wide receiver Mecole Hardman. I think when a guy only plays 9 offensive snaps but has 2 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown on 2 targets against the Packers, you got to find a way to consistently get this guy in the game. Put it this way, against the Packers in the first half, they had 5 explosive plays, which is typically defined by 20 or more yards. He had 2 of them. So how in the world he disappeared in the second half is perplexing. To his credit, though, he's not frustrated at all. I talked to him on Wednesday, and he's basically said he's being patient. But I think if the Chiefs go back and look at that tape and find a way to get him involved against the Vikings, maybe they have a shot there.
All right. First half Chiefs player of the year, non-Mahomes division.
I'm at a disadvantage here because I joined the beat in week 4.
Where were you before this?
I was in New Orleans covering the
Almost
Saints.
made it through.
So Teddy Bridgewater, no, I'm kidding.
27 minutes
Oh,
into.
wow. Let me see here. So in 3 games, who jumps out to me?
It's actually a really tough question.
You know, this is going to be kind of crazy if I say this, but I am going to say. I'm going to Mitchell Schwartz. I'll say Mitchell Schwartz.
Okay.
Because I enjoyed in the 3 games I've covered since being back on the Chiefs beat. He shut down J.J. Watt, or contributed to shutting down J.J. Watt, and then turns right around and shuts down Von Miller. And those are 2 elite pass rushers. And, of course, we know Schwartz is an all-pro anyway, but I'm going to go with
I
Schwartz.
like that. I like that call. Okay, second half record for the Chiefs, 8-game record. Let's put Mahomes back, not this week, but following week against the Titans.
I said a couple days ago, I think the Chiefs finish at 10-6, so I'll go with 5-3.
Okay, very good. All right, Sam McDowell. Where the rubber
Hold
meets
on. Favorite candy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
See, look at that. I
You're
remember this. Candy corn. You can't go wrong with
Oh
candy
my God, dear God.
What?
Can we beat
University
Mike?
shut down.
corn. Candy corn. What's
That
wrong
was
with candy corn?
spontaneous 4-man.
Oh, jeez.
Beth, can we unmic him?
Shameful.
And he made sure to get that one in.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that's
he
candy
should have
corn.
let
I'm
me
mad
hear
on
him
a
guess
lot of
that.
levels.
Jeez.
It just throws everything off.
That was an instant react out of the rest of the 4 of us. That was amazing.
All right, Sam McDowell, who has to come up big for the Chiefs this week?
Who has to come up big? I think you're going to have to pick a linebacker. I think Damian Wilson's going to have a big game, and I actually think Damian Wilson got a little bit of a bad rap based on the fact that they gave up so much in the passing game last week, and I know he was lumped into the stat that Sam mentioned after the game as far as their linebackers were 11 for 11. Rodgers was 11 for 11 going after the linebackers, but I thought most of that came against Hitchens and Ben Neiman, and then Wilson sort of got lumped into that. I thought he had a pretty decent first half and not that bad of a game overall, and I think if you're picking somebody that has to have a big day, Herbie mentioned earlier Dalvin Cook, so that's the matchup I think is going to be big for the Chiefs. They're going to have to at least come out break even on that matchup.
Okay, first half non-Mahomes player of the year.
I like the Mitchell Schwartz pick.
That was a good pick.
But I think the guy that maybe has played most above expectations, if I can sort of frame it that way, has been Juan Thornhill. I think as a rookie, he's come along more quickly than I expected. First few weeks were a little bit rough for him, but he's been really, really good over the past 3 or 4. I think that's one of the reasons their defense has played a lot better over the last 2 weeks.
Okay, very good. All right, second half record for the Chiefs.
Since I think they're going to win this week, that's probably the difference between 5-3 and 6-2. So I think 6-2.
Okay, so 11-5 finish for Sam McDowell. And
favorite candy?
Halloween candy.
Let's see. You know, the Starburst packs, if you get the red and pink only, is pretty clutch. If you're stuck with the yellow and orange, then you've got to go with a different choice. So I'm going to say Reese's.
Reese's.
It's hard to beat Reese's.
That was
Reese's.
excellent breakdown. Perfect. Oh, we're back at even now.
He likes none of my cheese picks, but likes my candy breakdown.
All right, Vahe, where the rubber meets the road.
Well, it's got to be Tyrann Mathieu, and this is the week for that pick 6 that we predict every week. But I think if he has a big game and does something really like that, it's what tilts the balance of the game to what Sam McDowell and I correctly believe will be a Chiefs win.
Okay. First half, Chiefs Player of the Year.
I want to say this first on that question. I think it's really telling that this is a tough question to answer.
It is. When I thought about it last night, I thought, God, there's a few guys, but nobody who you would consider having an all-pro season outside of
right.
Mahomes.
And I don't.
And Mitchell Schwartz. Yes, that's a good call.
But really, I feel like I wouldn't have thought of Mitchell Schwartz till Herbie said it, but I feel like he's like about the only guy you can think of that has been sort of outstanding across the board for the reasons Herbie pointed out. There have been other guys who've had moments. Kelsey's had moments, Tyreek Hill's had moments, but not many.
So that's because their stars are the guys who are out. Those are the guys we just listed on the injury report. The guys you would expect to make Pro Bowl, have Pro Bowl seasons, the guys that aren't in the lineup.
I like your reasoning on Juan Thornhill, but I'll go with Mitchell Schwartz too, just because I can't think of anybody else that really fits right for me on that.
RJ Weaver agrees with you, says the first half Player of the Year is Juan Thornhill.
Okay, smart guy, RJ. Thanks for watching.
Second half record for the Chiefs.
I like 6-2 also. I'm not a Sam McDowell clone, even though I try to be, but I do agree with him on that.
You've agreed with everything with him so far.
Yeah, I tried to say it first, so that it sounds like he's agreeing with me, but yeah.
I'm going to enjoy this because I imagine you're going to go old school on the Halloween candy.
It's a very interesting question to me. I've had, I guess, is this old school the last 20 years or so? Sour Patch Kids have kind of come into my view screen. I really like Sour Patch Kids.
I did not expect that answer.
But
I expected you as an Almond Joy kind of guy.
But it comes down to Heath Bar, which I've just had a little moment with the last couple days.
Yeah.
When, our friend Lisa Lopez
has been putting them in the jar.
Yeah, she's had, and just a little Heath Bar. Little goes a long way with the dentist, because that's tough on the teeth. But it's the Heath Bar.
Very good. That is old school. That's some old school candy right there.
Old man football.
All right, Sam. Where the rubber meets the road, who's going to have to play well?
Tonight or on Sunday?
On Sunday, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, it's
Halloween. It's Halloween.
I was locked in on the other side. Anthony Hitchens, a bounce back kind of effort, sort of like how everybody was, and not everybody else, like us too, dumping on the Chiefs defense going into that Denver game, and they kind of had a screw you kind of performance. I think Anthony Hitchens is in that category right now.
All right, MVP. First half MVP.
I think Sam McDowell stole mine, Juan Thornhill. So since he did that, and I think that, look, like over and over again last year, we talked, or at least I talked about like how the safeties were just rotten and they were just exposing everything else. And he's been the biggest reason for that. Like the cornerbacks have looked. So he stole Juan Thornhill. So I will go down a little bit and just say Charvarius Ward. I think has really come on. He hasn't been the MVP, but he's really come on the last few weeks. He's shown a lot more confidence. He's playing deep ball. The ball skills are starting to develop a little bit. I think his arrow is pointing up, as they would say.
Okay.
6-2.
Second half record.
They're going to lose Sunday, and they're going to lose in Foxborough, and they're going to win the rest of them. And they're going to be 11-5. And if the Ravens beat the Texans at home, and those teams finish 11-5, the Chiefs would have the number 2 seed based on tiebreaker. Mm-hmm. That's going to happen. What else do you need? Refrigerated Snickers.
Refrigerator.
You got to put it in the refrigerator so it's a little bit cold.
So when the kids knock on your door, you have to say, hold on, I'm going to run to the refrigerator and get this.
No, they get warm.
Okay.
That's for him.
Or you can put them outside tonight, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, refrigerated. It adds a little bit of, I don't know what it is, but it's good. Try it. Freezer is too much.
For a Snickers, for sure.
You end up biting with your molars.
You can put like a Nestle's bar or something, pretty thin chocolate in the freezer.
You know what's great in the freezer? It's an Overlook candy bar. My mom turned me onto it. It's the Skor bar, S-K-O-R.
Oh, I remember the Skor bar.
Put one of those bad boys in the freezer. Give it a few hours, and it's pretty solid.
What's being handed out from the Mellinger household tonight?
We got like a few of those. We got a few of those like big ass like Costco, you know.
Yeah.
So I'll steal the Snickers out of there. Then York peppermint patties like are just going out like immediately.
All right. So I guess it's me, right? Where the rubber meets the road, I'm going to go Tyreek Hill. The one vulnerability on the Vikings defense is the cornerback. Rhodes isn't playing well.
Not
this
had a great year. No.
Not had a good year, so I think there's an opportunity for the Chiefs to exploit that position. The first half the non-Mahomes Player of the Year, I'm going to say Tyrann Mathieu. I think he's been a little underrated, underappreciated. Yep. I think he brings more to the team than just the skills on the field. I think he's a great locker room guy.
Yeah.
He's become the defensive spokesman, right?
Yeah,
Kind of the go-to guy in the locker room for that. I totally agree. I think we're all on the same page on second half record, either 5-3 or 6-2. I'm with Sam on this. I got them losing Sunday, losing to the Patriots, winning all the other games. They'll certainly be favored in all the other games. I think they'll. Are they? Who's favored this week?
Minnesota.
Okay,
2.5.
because it has just been established in Vegas that Moore would be the
Yeah, there's actually some sports books that do have it off though, right?
Yeah,
now,
still off. So Halloween candy, I got a lot of them. I do. But I'm going to give you a little upset on the Halloween candy. You guys remember Mike and Ike's?
Yeah.
I'm going Mike and Ike.
You can still get them in the movie theater.
That's the only place I see them really is in the movie theater. So it's sort of my just favorite candy versus Halloween candy. But I'm going to go with that.
Bravo, man.
It's a little different. It's a little old school.
What did it edge out?
Chocolatey sort of things. I like the Milky Way. I think for the Halloween candy, the bite-sized Milky Way is what I enjoy. And those are good cold as well in the refrigerator. In the freezer right now, we do have some Hershey's bars. I like the Hershey's bars. They're thin, and almonds or plain. You can get those either way in the freezer. So,
What are you guys giving out? Are you giving out broccoli or something?
well, chocolate-covered broccoli, right? Candy-coated broccoli, as per usual.
I'm not going to lie. I'm turning
Anything
my
but
porch light
candy
off.
corn, because if you give that away,
Anything.
your house will get
Anything
egged
but
the next
candy
day
corn.
if you're giving away that trash.
And I don't imagine you're giving anything away, Herbie, right?
No, my porch light is off, and I'm making sure all my front lights are off so no one knocks on my door. Sorry, kids.
You're going to serve fruitcake at the Halloween or at the Christmas party?
Yeah, I'll bring fruitcake to the Christmas party.
Candy corn fruitcake.
Good. All right. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Thanks to Beth for producing. Thanks to Mike and Sarah for being here. Thanks to Ann and Jack for being here. It's great to see you guys. Always great to see you. We will join you again after the Chiefs-Vikings game on Sunday from Arrowhead Stadium, where the Chiefs are looking to break a 3-game losing streak at that stadium. So long.